Podcaster? I hardly know her.
Welcome to the I Hardly Know Her podcast, hosted by me, Megan McCaleb. If there's one thing I've learned in this life, it's that I still have a lot to learn. This podcast is your invitation to expand your understanding on all sorts of topics and shake things up a little bit. Listen in and learn something new from the stories, professional insights, and a wide range of expertise shared by me and my incredible guests. And remember, my friends, you don't have to be a big deal to do big things. Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the I Hardly Know Her podcast. I'm your host, Megan McCaleb. Today, I'm bringing a guest that I've been really fascinated by and have implemented a lot of the tools and techniques that he teaches on social media. For those of you moms out there or parents in general, this obviously applies to any of us rearing young children and even aunties and uncles and teachers. This is one of those spaces where as adults, we can do better when we learn how to do things in a new and refreshed way to help guide our young people. And so I have just really enjoyed consuming the content that this creator makes. So we have Mr.Chazz. He goes by Mr.Chazz. Chazz Lewis is coming on today. His mission is to help adults to truly see, guide, and trust children. He's pushing the needle a little closer toward see if I can talk, toward world peace, which I can totally agree that we are heading towards world peace with his approach. He's a consultant, a parent coach, a conscious discipline practitioner, a podcaster, and a content creator. So online, he goes by Mr.Chazz, and he even has a song to prove it. So let's welcome him to the studio. Thanks for being here. Do you normally go by Mr.Chazz like when we're just in conversation?
So I normally go by. I go by Mr. Chazz because I am a teacher who works at a school, and that's just what all the kids call
Yeah,
me, and that's what I hear all day, and it just feels like a part of my identity.
I love it.
But no, my friends call me Chaz. You feel free
Right
to
on.
call me whatever. But if you try to find me on social media, you look up Mr. Chaz,
Yeah.
MrChazz.
Right on. So do people always ask you what the song is? I mean, I feel like we need to prove it. Where does the Mr.Chazz song come to play here?
So I will tell you that the song is actually on. It starts and ends every episode of my podcast.
Oh, awesome.
Actually recorded. I'm doing it with the children, and every episode. Um, but if you'd really like for me to sing it right now, I could do that.
I feel like I want to guide people to check out your podcast so they can go. We'll put links and we're going to make sure that people know where to find you. I was trying to think of when I first started following your content, but at what point did it transition? Because how long have you been a teacher? I guess first of all, how long have you been in the teaching space, acquiring this perspective of things that we could be better about?
Oh man, over a decade at this point.
Okay.
Probably somewhere around like 12 years. When I stepped into a Montessori room.
Oh,
And when I first started, I really did not know much anything. I only knew the how I was raised, and what I've kind of seen people do a lot of fear control based methods.
yeah.
And I struggled a lot when I first entered into the classroom, and I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like I knew the gravity of what I was doing of helping to grow and develop the next generation of humans, but I did not know how to do that. I would go into a
Mm,
situation where two children were having conflict, and they might be arguing and maybe, yelling and saying some things to each other. And by the time I was done with them, they'd be fighting and hitting each other. So there was a lot of moments where I questioned if I was really being helpful or if what I was doing was creating more harm than good. And that's when I
gotcha.
set out on a journey to just learn a better way, because I thought to myself, there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way to guide children in a healthy and effective way. And that's when I really started my journey to just learn a better way, practice a better way, reflect on the mistakes and the mess ups that inevitably happen when you're learning something new, and
Yeah.
then come back with the learning and trying to practice and just continue on like that.
Oh, I love it. And I was trying to remember the exact like, I know one of the very first things I saw of yours was where you're kinda doing like a role play as a parent on the one cut, and then you cut to, like, the child's perspective, right? And putting the specific examples of what people are struggling with and adding some of that emotional intelligence verbiage around it, like what is actually causing the triggers or why are we showing up this way? What like walk me through that path of like taking this information. You started this journey of learning how to find a different way to communicate. And then at what point did you go, oh, okay, this is something that I can teach other people beyond just in the classroom? I mean, you're helping parents in a huge way with helping us see where we're doing it wrong. Like we don't even know sometimes that we're doing it wrong because that's all we know,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, yeah. And, I have a lot of empathy for people who are in various parts of their journey, right? Like I said, when I started in the classroom, I used a lot of fear and control based methods. So I've been there. I get that. And really, in my journey, I was in the beginning when I was in the classroom, I was just focused on myself. I was just
Mm,
focused on improving myself. I wasn't focused on sharing my information or trying to help anyone else. I was focused on trying to help the kids inside of my classroom and helping them be successful. And as I was successful in that, I started to get more and more kids who challenged other teachers. The kids that would destroy the rooms, would kick teachers, would run out
mm,
the room. Those are the kids that were put in my classroom. And to be honest, when I first got those kids, to be real with y'all, I did not want to have those kids in my classroom because it added it added difficulty to an already difficult situation of just trying to be a teacher and trying to guide young children.
mhm,
Um, but in retrospect, I have to say that those are the kids that I'm most grateful for because those are the kids that helped me grow more than the kids that would like listen the first time, right? It's not the kids that that keep their hands to themselves and line up when you tell them, to line up and are able to stay focused. Those aren't the kids uh that challenge you, that help you grow the most. It's the kids who are, hurting others, the kids who are dysregulated, the kids who do have trauma, the kids who do have executive functioning challenges that really
mm,
push you to grow the most. And so I was doing that for a while. And then teachers started to come to me and started to ask, okay, like I see you have like somehow you have Jaden and he is successful in your classroom and you have Maria and she's successful in your classroom. Now I need like can you give me some tips about what to do for this situation? I've just kind of casually offered advice
yeah,
and recommend, oh, this is what I would do. And then teachers started to kind of come back and just would tell me how much those little tips that I shared impacted their day, this child's day, and it kind of became this ongoing thing where during my break, teachers would come in and kind of ask questions, and I would offer what I thought would be helpful, and that's when a light bulb went off for me of like, wow, I really maybe I do have something to offer others, and
mhm,
I love the impact that I'm able to make on my uh, community of little about 25 kids. And I love being able to make the impact on them. But if I could support teachers and if I could help other teachers, that impact could be exponential. And that's when I became an
mm,
educational specialist. And my role then was to go to different schools and support teachers and directors and families and children. And that's when they would, you know, largely what I was doing was helping people with behavior concerns, right?
yeah,
That allowed me to grow even more because instead of just, my main focus were the children who were having a hard time, who were challenging the teachers, who were challenging the parents,
mhm,
who were challenging the directors. They're on TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, all of the platforms, and it just started to resonate with people. It blew up, it grew, and now I get comments every day from parents and teachers talking about how uh,
mhm.
the tips and the tricks and the perspective and the things that I share have been life changing, not only for them and their relationship with their children, but also in other situations in life, and just in the ways that they communicate and navigate relationships at work,
Yeah.
with their spouse, because the things that I teach are not just helpful for the adult child relationship, they're helpful for all of the relationships that we have.
Oh, for
So I'm going
sure.
to pause right there.
Yeah, no, this is so great. I'm curious when you were working with these youngsters and like a lot of the challenges are they're happening probably at home and at school. So what did you have like conversations with parents as you were working through certain processes? Like what was that type of dynamic? And how like if kids are learning really empowering things from you and maybe they can't use those or they don't feel confident in using those tools at home yet, like where do we bridge that gap of like what they're learning in the schoolroom versus what they're going home to and kind of pulling those together?
Yeah. Well, any kind of intervention, and that's what I was called in for a lot, needs to have parent involvement, right?
Mm,
Because we don't want to, one, we want the parent to know what's going on, because sometimes there are things that we're missing at school because we might be the expert in child development, but that parent is the expert of that child. So
yeah,
we
okay.
really need to, and I am a big pusher of teacher parent collaboration. I really do think that we need to collaborate more in
Mm,
general, when it comes to teacher and parent collaboration, because we're really the two uh, important people or groups of people that impact the child's growth and well-being and development the most.
mm,
So we really need to be on the same page. And so yes, I would observe and kind of see what's happening in the classroom and see what's going on. I'd offer recommendations. I'd be having conversations with parents about what they're seeing, what they're observing. Like, is this something that you are observing at home? And a lot of times they're not. It's the behaviors that we see at school are not the same behaviors that they see at home, because the dynamics are different, right?
ooh,
the
yeah.
the dynamics are different, the environment is different, you know especially if the child is a doesn't have any siblings, right? You're going to
Mm,
definitely see different behavior when the child is around other children, as opposed to when the child maybe doesn't have to fight for attention at home, because it's just the parents and the child, right?
oh
um,
yeah,
and so we
interesting.
collaborate and we talk about that, and then we also might offer some things that, because just because they don't see the behavior at home doesn't mean that there aren't some things that the parent could do to kind of support and uh, the child in teaching them new skills that they could transfer over at school, or
Mhm.
skills that we're teaching at school that can be transferred over at home.
Yeah.
And I said sometimes we don't see the same behaviors, but a lot of times we do see similar behaviors, that the parent is struggling with something similar at home, right? Maybe they're struggling with their child with impulse control, or they're struggling with their child in taking turns, or getting getting the adult's attention. A lot of these skills that children struggle to use. Now, you may not see the same behavior. The end result might be different, right?
Mm,
The child might not be hitting for a toy at home, but the child still struggles to communicate wants and needs in a more appropriate way at home,
yeah.
right? It just might come out differently at school.
Right. Oh my gosh. And I totally relate to so many of these things. And I think that's why I'm so fascinated by watching like parenting accounts in general. I'm just like I can't get enough of it because I was on the other side of it with one of my kiddos. So I have four young kids, and my third kid, when he was in first grade, he was having the hardest time, but it was at my house. I was hearing about different behavior at his dad's house because I am divorced, and then the parent or his teachers were like, "Oh my gosh, he's like The best. He's always helping other students. He's always cheerful. He's whatever. And like in my house, I was seeing rage and knocking things over and explosive behaviors. And so I was like, what, help me get information to figure out what to do as the parent, because I was like, why
Mhm.
is this happening? So it's really fascinating to hear. I mean, because they're all going to be different. Every kid is their own individual, and they're learning how to navigate things. And eventually he exploded at me one day because I was like, "Hey, buddy, let's talk about what's going on." I'm like, "It's okay to be mad. It's totally cool. Mom feels feelings too." And I've like noticed what it would bring up for me. And we're talking one day, and he just totally burst into tears, and he was like, "I explode here because I can." He's like, "There's so many
Mm,
things that annoy me." He's like, "I don't feel like I get." Like he actually listed some things off. He's like, I don't get a certain amount of attention, or there's a lot of noise, in other areas. And he likes to have solitude and stuff. And so it was like, oh, I was seeing the anger and the lashing out or whatever. And obviously there's other feelings that get tethered to it. Um, but it can be really frustrating for everyone, if for
yeah.
parents to not know how to help them navigate, for the kids to not know how to express themselves. A lot of adults don't know how to express themselves still yet, because we grew up maybe not being allowed to express ourselves. I mean, there's so many layers.
Yeah, and a lot of
Um,
parents in those situations will be like, Is there something wrong with me? Am I doing something
Yeah,
wrong?" Like,
which I totally thought. I was like, I must be the worst mom." I'm like, "Why does he hate me so much? Like,
right?
what is it about my home that he's like wants to tear things apart?" Like, it was very confusing for both of us.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was gonna tell you pretty much what he told you, and it's beautiful that there was a moment where he was able to tell you that. And I think that speaks volumes in itself, right? I think that reinforces all what he's telling you, that you are that safe place for him. And so like all day he's trying to hold it together and hold it together and
Mm,
hold it together. And I'm sure there's, especially if there's a lot of change going on, and there's,
right.
maybe going to the different houses can add stress too. And there's just so many things that are going on, and sometimes we don't always see it in certain situations. And at school, right, there might be, he probably doesn't, he can't break down and cry and be upset. He might feel, judged by his peers or
Yeah.
teachers or whatever. And so when he gets home, it's just like, I can actually be myself. Or I can kind of like just unload. It's restraint collapse. Like I can kind of collapse and kind of fall into your arms. And that might look like different things. It might look like just, I
Mm,
can scream because I can finally scream now. I've been wanting to
sure.
scream all day. It might look like just literally crying and falling to your arms. Um, and something that uh, I would recommend doing in those situations is, one, the perspective can just be helpful on its own, to know that you're not doing anything wrong. You're just a safe place for him. And
Mm,
understanding that we are the same way, right? Like when we're at work, we're different. We're much more polite than what we probably are
yeah,
at home with the people that we feel safe with and we're comfortable with, like maybe our spouse, right? Like
right.
at work, we're going to be very professional and polite and hold it together, maybe sit up straight, and at home, we're like, get through the door and we fart, right? And so, like,
Yep.
we can, that's not a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
um, and so that's one thing. And the other thing, or that's one helpful thing, to just have that perspective. Something else that might be helpful is to just really try to prepare uh, for that first maybe like 30 minutes when they come home, of just allowing them to just kind of allowing them to collapse, allowing them a
Mm,
safe place to fall. Almost kind of metaphorically. I mean, if you can kind of create like a maybe a cozy corner for them that they can go into, like, and
mm,
allow them to just chill and just relax without, because a lot of times you know, as soon as they've have all these expectations at school, and they come home, and then we bombard them with more expectations, right? As opposed to
mm,
just have some time to just kind of chill and relax and kind of plan those things, and then let them know that and maybe a snack might be helpful too.
yeah.
Uh, and just be intentional about creating a space for them to regulate. And I
Yeah.
would say schedule that into your time and not make it something that like, oh, they're getting kind of ragey, go to your corner. No, it is you come in like this is we're gonna have some regulation that you can expect to be able to kind of collapse and
Yeah.
regulate.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, I love that. I think the key there too is that you said to schedule it. Because I know a lot of us are busy and like kids are busy too with all their extracurriculars and all the different things. So it does feel like we're running to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And I think that could actually be something I was picturing like if I have that on my calendar and I get to decompress with them. I mean, I'm working all day. Yeah, I'm working from home, but I'm still working on
yeah.
projects and whatever. And if we have kind of like that designated downtime, even as a family, I feel like that would be beneficial to me too. And for all of us to like to prioritize that restful space of letting the day kind of melt away.
Yeah, and you might need that time too, right? And this
Yeah.
is kind of where I'm kind of going into where I said before, like everything that I recommend for kids. I mean, I also recommend for adults too, that we a lot of times uh we as adults get burnt out and we have so much stuff just pent up, right? And we're trying to keep it all together, we're trying to keep it all together
Yeah.
at work, and we're trying to keep it all together for the kids and for the spouse, and trying to plan all the things and this, and we try to keep it all together and be happy and put on a good face and until we can't anymore. And
Yeah.
then often what happens is we blow up, right? And we get ragey and we start taking it out on our kids, our spouse, other people, whoever it is. We take it out on other people. And what we need to do is to recognize one, we want to build the skill of being able to recognize when we're starting to get to that place and then figure out what we need to do to kind of bring ourselves down and kind of regulate a little bit more or calm ourselves down and what we need to kind of put more resources back into our bodies so that we can do the very hard important work of caring for others.
Uh-huh.
uh, but we want to be more proactive than just recognizing it
Mm.
in the moment. We want to be proactive and we want to know that okay, I know usually by like 11 o'clock or by 4 o'clock or by 3 o'clock I'm starting to get annoyed and frustrated or just overwhelmed or I need a break. I'm going to schedule that in when we come from school. When I pick you up from school and we come in through the door, it's I might even give you you might have a snack and have some screen time, and I'm going to take some time by myself. Maybe I'm going to have some screen time. Maybe I'm going to use this time to get dinner ready. Maybe I'm going to use this time to pray. Maybe I'm going to use time to take a walk and exercise. Whatever works for you, whatever works for you as an individual and for your schedule and your situation. But that's why it's even more important to schedule it out so that you can try to make that work rather
Totally.
than just trying to putting it off and putting it off and putting it off because we'll put it off until we can't put it off anymore. And that's usually when
Mm.
it's too late. We're already young. We're already doing the thing that is outside, not aligned with our values, right? And then we're feeling
Yeah.
guilty. We're feeling bad and we're beating ourselves up because we don't know, because we have all these negative mental models that you're not allowed to make mistakes. And, it just becomes a cycle of a self sabotage rather than a cycle of self regulation and a cycle of of caring for each other and learning. And one more thing I want to say too, I know I've been talking for a while. When some a lot of people are get touched out, right? And young kids especially love hugs and touch and all that stuff is great for connection, but sometimes we get touched out, right? And
Mm.
it's important for us to be able to communicate that to to our family, right? That sometimes ahead of time too. Again, not when I'm already touched out. I'm already like, just get off of me, right? I just need some
Yeah.
space. Can you just go over there for a second? That's when
Yeah.
it's too late, right? Ahead of time, we wanna communicate that sometimes touch gets me to a red place, right? However you communicate, it, right? Depending on the age, depends on how you might want to, I get angry, I get frustrated, or I get overwhelmed, or I get into the red zone, right? Or my lid is going to flip, right? Whatever language you use that the receiver will communicate it, right? And so there are going to be some times where I'm going to just need 5 minutes or 10 minutes, right? Of maybe quiet, or maybe of just not being touched, or maybe just, being alone, right? And I know you said you're a single mom, so you might not have that support to always, tag someone in, right?
Right.
Um, and so, like, but oftentimes, if you talk to your child about it ahead of time, that's they're a lot more understanding of that than if you're just in the moment and they really feel like they need a hug and you're just like, just get away from me, right? And then what you're teaching them is that it is okay for you to have needs, right? You as a mother, it is okay for you to have needs, right? You as a child, it is okay for you to have needs. And when you do have these needs, and some of these needs might be unique to us with our individual differences, but if you have these needs, it is okay, it is safe, it is important to express them so that we all know and that we can know how we can better take care of each other.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, this is so good. Oh, okay. Now a word comes to mind as I was reviewing your bio here. The word discipline. I want to talk in a moment here
Mhm.
about conscious discipline, because just yesterday I was actually talking to my trainer at the gym about discipline in general and how it can be such a struggle to create a new discipline around something. And I know that that word to me has always had sort of a negative vibe, because a discipline is usually because I've done something wrong and I'm in trouble and I'm being disciplined in a negative way. So I want you to first tell us, like, what does it mean to be a conscious discipline practitioner? Like, what is the space of conscious discipline, and how do we have like really positive, yummy energy around something that is actually probably very productive and uplifting if we're using it in a good way?
So, yes, first, I'll say conscious discipline it's probably maybe like 27 years old at this point. It's a 27-year-old social emotional learning program. Um, and it's a philosophy and that I use, and I use in the classroom, I use with parents, I use with coaching. And so the term, if you're really interested in this whole kind of larger philosophy, I would highly recommend looking into conscious discipline. And I actually work with them because we're just so aligned in our missions and our visions and what we're doing, that there's some of their books, well, really all their materials, you can get free shipping if you use my promo code Chaz23. So I'll just say that
Nice.
off the
Cool.
bat, and I will mention some resources maybe a little bit later, but Chaz23, CHAZZ23, you'll get free shipping for a lot of their books that will teach you about conscious discipline and how to discipline your kids in an effective and healthy way. Now, what
Cool.
does discipline mean? What does the word discipline mean? The word discipline means to teach, right? It means to teach. It doesn't mean to punish. It doesn't mean to make a child feel bad until they do what you want them to do. It means to teach. And so what conscious discipline is about it's really about intentional teaching, right? And a lot of times we teach
Mm.
things that we don't mean to teach. We teach things unconsciously. What we have a big tendency to do is to take the lessons that we received growing up, and a lot of the patterns that we received that were programmed into us growing up, like a pattern of suppressing our emotions, or a pattern of communicating aggressively or passively,
Mhm.
or a pattern of abuse, a pattern of domestic violence. Often these patterns are programmed into us, and we unconsciously pass on these patterns to our children, right? And that's what they receive. And it's just this cycle of unhealthy behaviors that we often
Mm.
pass on to children. Now, as we can pass on unhealthy behaviors, we can also pass on patterns of more healthy behaviors, more helpful behaviors, right? And conscious discipline is all about being intentional to pass on a pattern of healthy behaviors, such as learning to self regulate, right? Um, this is what conscious discipline is all about. And one last bit I will say about conscious discipline for now, is that conscious discipline is kind of based around these 7 skills that you when you start to practice conscious discipline, not only do you have to learn the skills, you learn to teach children these skills. And I
Mm.
will name the skills. The skills are the skill of composure, and that's all about being the person that you want others to be, right? It's like being the change, right? So yelling at a child to stop yelling isn't exactly composure, right? Hitting a child for hitting isn't composure, right? So
Right.
composure. Assertiveness, it's all about clear communication and setting limits and boundaries. Encouragement, empathy, choices, positive intent, and yes, consequences.
Mm. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Go.
So
Yeah.
I love it. So in this space, and I admittedly probably am a little newer to it just in the last several years as a parent, really wanting to be a good mom and noticing that anytime I read like books about being a good mom, most of the rules, as you're saying, they really apply to us as adults. Like there's things that we can be doing to be more gentle with ourselves, to process through things and forgive for things we didn't know,
Yes.
we didn't know because we didn't know. And I've noticed recently a lot of the noise coming back to want to fight against these things, saying that this is too soft, that we're getting, like people that are like, well, I was spanked and I turned out fine. Like, what I don't understand it, why there is a negative thing around the softness and this gentle. It's not really even soft. It's like just more regulated, right? Like why wouldn't we want to have the softness? Do you notice a lot of people wanting to ironically maybe fight back to these principles because we're trying to not have such heightened, crazy feelings, or to act, I guess, when we're having big feelings. Um, I don't know. I feel like there's like a blur of questions that I have in my mind right now that are sort of all in there of like, how can we encourage people to like let their guard down a little bit and not feel like it's they're bad or wrong for not having done this, and that like the ways that we've done it in the past are not as productive and quote unquote soft and gentle and nurturing as it could be if we were doing it in a more conscious way.
Here's
There's
I'm
a
just gonna
lot.
do the hot take right now. People who are unable to people who are unable to self-regulate and respond are weaker emotionally than those who are able to pull it off, right? It takes an insurmountable amount of strength, of
Mm-hmm.
internal strength, to be able to respond to a child as opposed to just react to a child, right? It's
Yeah.
easy to just fly off the handle, or if a child does something that we don't agree with, or that doesn't meet our expectations, it's easy to overpower a child with aggression and shaming, right? It is easy to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it takes so much more strength to be able to say, I'm feeling frustrated and I want to lash out at you. I want to put these emotions on you. I'm going to take a breath and I'm going to find a different way to solve this problem that does not involve aggression, right? That does not involve passivity, right? That does not involve shaming our kids. That takes strength.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, uh, like, I 100% reject the idea that this is a soft approach.
Mm-hmm.
This is an approach that requires you to have to build strength, not only to just, it's not just about having it's constantly building and working out internal and emotional strength. um so I completely reject the idea that this is a
Yeah.
soft approach. And in terms of, I got hit and I turned out fine. um sure, you might have turned out fine, but wouldn't it be great to be able to have more skills to solve problems than what you already have, right? And the fact that we might be resorting to aggression or hitting, and is it The fact that we're resorting to aggression and hitting is a sign that we are weaker, right?
Yeah.
Not a
Yeah.
sign that we're stronger. Because what parents always say when they say, or even schools, because in 19 states you're still allowed to paddle children.
Oof.
Um, uh, what we will say is that I did it as a last resort, right? Because there was
Mm.
nothing else I could do because I tried everything, right? And this was the only thing that would work, right? And wouldn't it be, wouldn't you want to have other ways to solve that problem so you didn't have to go to that last resort, right? What if you had six other ways to solve that problem more than your maybe two or three or four ways that you tried, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, maybe you turned out fine, but you could have turned out better.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I sometimes I'm like, I find myself just clenching when I read comments and stuff. I troll your comments a little bit sometimes because I want to see what other people are engaging with, and it's always so tactful how you handle things. And really, like, when people don't have that emotional strength yet or the capacity to be reflective of how they're showing up, to take some ownership in that, um there's only so much we can do. I mean, there's not, you can't go in and like say you're the one doing this thing wrong, right? They're not going to hear it. So when we do have people in our lives who are not up to the challenge yet of exercising these muscles, like what can we do as individuals to help promote these behaviors in our immediate circle if we have family members or friends who are not stepped into this space of, really conscious behaviors yet?
Yeah. First thing, for yourself, you're going to remind yourself that the only person that you can control is yourself. You can't control your family members. You can't control your spouse. You can't control your child. The only person you can control is yourself. So start there. Is the first thing I would say. The other thing I would say is keep improving yourself and keep modeling, and keep on, because realistically, no one on the journey is perfect. Doesn't exist, right? There's always an
Right.
opportunity for ourselves to improve, um, and so continue, focusing on that, right? Focus less on this person needs to do better, this person needs to improve, this person needs to change. Focus more on being the change rather than uh, shaming or beating other people up for not changing yet, not changing and not being where we are at in our journey. First thing I have to say too. The other thing, I guess this is the third thing I would say, is that if it's someone who is close to you, if it's someone who leave your child alone with, um, hopefully you have a good relationship with them. Try to understand their perspective and be
Mm.
curious about where they're coming from, right? Because you probably, if you are leaving your child with this adult or with this caregiver, um, the assumption is you both probably want what's best for this child, right? You both want this child to be successful, right? And so
Mm.
just start there with the common ground of we both want this child to be successful. We might have different ways about how we think that is going to happen or how that could happen. But start with the common ground. We both want the child to be successful, um, and just have ongoing, non judgmental conversations about it. And the last thing I would say is that as you're having these non judgmental conversations, as you're continuing to improve your own practice, as you're modeling this around your spouse or whoever it is, um, then also know that not everyone is going to practice the thing or do the thing that you told them to do in front of you. A lot of
Mm.
people
Mhm.
will practice or try they might try the empathy, or might try the encouragement, they might try the choices when you're not there because they may not feel completely comfortable with failing around you, or
Mm.
they don't want to try and then mess up in front of you, right? So uh, also understand that people might be doing the work silently.
Mm. Mm. There are so many juicy nuggets in here. Thank you so much for sharing this wisdom, and giving actually like tangible things, the way we can perceive things and invite a new way into our world. I so much appreciate your time and spending it here with our listeners. You guys, if you have not already paused this episode and jumped over to the socials, you need to immediately. You'll see it in the show links, different ways that you can connect with Mr. Chazz. But you can find Chazz on, I'm on the gram. I know you're probably on all the things, but I'm always following you on Instagram. But all of your handles, I would assume, are always going to be at Mr. Chazz with two
Yep.
Z's.
Yep.
And yeah, thank you for the work you're doing. I love it that it really is. I stumbled over the words of going towards world peace, but I do feel such a good energy from watching you tackle these challenging dynamics in a fun, approachable, tactical way. And I strongly encourage you guys to check him out and to follow along and to enhance your own experience on this journey of being a human being. This is amazing. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show.
Can I say one more thing? And it's the most
Please
important
do.
thing
Please.
that I will say in this whole conversation. And I can't leave without saying it. Perfection does not exist. Okay.
Yeah.
Stop trying to be the perfect parent or the perfect teacher or the perfect perfection. It doesn't exist. So stop trying to compare yourself to this perfect curated feed that you see on Instagram. I always say avoid being a perfectionist, be an improvementist. The goal isn't to be
Ooh.
perfect every day. The goal is to improve a little every day. So take that with you. You're not just raising your children, you're raising your children's children. You're not going to eliminate every unhealthy pattern of behavior in one generation. They've been building and being reinforced for generations and generations and generations. It is unrealistic to think that you're going to undo every unhealthy pattern of behavior in one generation, and that's not your role. What your role is to just to start the journey and to keep taking little steps each day, and every step that you take on your journey is a step that your child will not have to take, because they're going to build off of your growth. You're not supposed to you're not supposed to break every generational cycle. You're just supposed to keep on moving and moving and grow as much as you can, and let your child or your children pick up that torch and continue to build off of your growth.
Oh, that's so good. Yes, this is your invitation, friends, to become an improvementist. Improvementist? Did I say that right?
Yes, and improving this. And if you're
I
looking
love
for
it.
and if you're looking for books, there are two books that I really highly recommend for parents. Um, uh, it's Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline by Dr. Becky Bailey. And if you go to the Conscious Discipline website, you can get free shipping on that book. I would also really recommend, and that's like a general parenting book that
Okay.
will help you tackle a lot of things. And I really recommend it. It's really mostly for like 2 to about 12 is kind of what it focuses on. So this is a general parenting book. And then Managing Emotional Mayhem, the 5 steps to self-regulation,
Okay.
game changer. It will teach you, if you're someone who wants to teach your child how to self-regulate, who sometimes have, if you're someone who sometimes has a hard time self-regulating yourself, who gets triggered, who has trauma, the 5 steps to self-regulation, Managing Emotional Mayhem, the 5 steps to self-regulation will help you tremendously. I highly recommend get those 2 books and get them for free shipping, and use my promo code Chaz23 so you can get the free shipping.
That sounds amazing. I'll make sure to add those into the notes as well.
Hope that
So
helps.
fantastic. Thank you again for your time. This has been very uplifting and inspiring. Thanks so much, Chaz.
All right. Thank you. And have a great
All
day.
right. Yeah, thanks. And to listeners, thanks for tuning into another episode of the I Hardly Know Her podcast. We look forward to having you each week with different guests who can help you expand your understanding around topics you may have questions on, or you just don't really understand. And we're just gathering new information so we can be better people. And if you're ever looking for leadership communication skills, you can find that with Improv Team Culture. Check us out and check out all of Mr. Chazz's information in the show notes, and we will catch you again soon. Thanks for tuning in to the I Hardly Know Her podcast. For information about leadership workshops, public speaker training, and all things Kooky Megan, check out improvteamculture.com. We'll catch you next time.